approve the agenda, please? Councillor Medlock moving, Councillor Smith seconding. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 10th, 2017. Okay, Councillor Bible, Councillor Erickson moving and seconding. Comments?
Sorry, I probably should have talked to Ms. Harkett first, but Councillor Erickson's report that says that he's happy that the Fellow Road is paved. And it's going to be paved. It's not
Oh,
paved.
sorry, yeah, okay.
That was the only error I saw. Thank you.
Okay, additional comments in minutes? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Item 5B, committee of the whole meeting held October 10th as well. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Okay, Councillor Medlock moving, seconded. Councillor Smith. A Medlock and Smith motion on that one.
Okay.
Questions or comments pertaining to the committee of the whole? All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Record of public hearing held October 11th. Okay, thank you. Councillor Dival, seconded.
Second.
Councillor Smith, second. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries, thank you. No delegations at this point. Staff report from our Director of Finance pertaining to library summer Sunday openings. Okay, I'll just read out the motion, put it on the table, and then we can get staff to speak to it. Recommended motion is that council approve the opening of the library for all of the Sundays for which it is currently closed in the year starting in 2018 onward, with no increase in the member assessment as currently proposed for its fiscal 2018, or, well, I guess we have to do this properly, we probably have to talk about it first, otherwise we'll offer it otherwise. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 weeks ago, I was recently made aware of, through the regional library, with their proposed budget for 2018. And I guess currently right now, the library is closed on the Sundays in the summer, which is pretty much from July to just after Labor Day. And so in their budget proposal for 2018, they've included opening the library on those Sundays, and in doing that in their budget, it would be an additional $1,600. So in the draft budget that I've received, that is in there for the member assessment for the district. And then the other option is not to, basically status quo, keep it closed on the Sundays, and then that would reduce the member assessment by $1,600. I did have some contact with Nicole Wentworth at the library, and I could maybe just read out her email response to when I discussed this with her. She said that after consulting with our support services manager, we found that at this point in time we do not have any statistics that would show a true picture on the effect of opening on all Sundays in July and August. Typically July and August are the busiest months for items being borrowed at the library, and therefore it would not be a true comparison if we say compare a number of items returned on a Tuesday, in brackets as we are closed on Mondays, during the rest of the year compared to July and August. If we do, however, open on Sundays throughout the entire year, it would mean a change in the complement of staffing at the library, which may open up opportunities for extra programs to be offered. Also in my report there, you'll see the effect percentage-wise. So in their proposal, including the Sunday openings, our assessment would go up $10,712, or a 3.27% increase. And should the council choose not to open on those Sundays, it would only represent a $9,112 increase, or a 2.78% increase over last year. And just for information purposes, I've included their what our assessment was for this year over 2016, and that was pretty much 3%. So the increases with the openings are in the ballpark of the kind of consistent increases that we see from year to year. So the letter I've attached in the report from the Chief Executive Officer, they would like the response no later than Friday, November 10th. So hence why it was brought on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Cordes. Now, would council be amenable to the $1,600 increase to allow for the Sunday openings? Councilor Midlock.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we increase the budget as per their Sunday's opening. $1,600 seems like a low cost with a potential high value. And since they've never done that before, we've never had Sundays, it'll at least give them the information if it's worthwhile or not. We can look at it again in future budget years, but for $1,600, it seems like a great thing to do. So I'd like to make that motion. To the first half there, to approve the opening on Sundays with no increase in the member assessment as currently proposed.
That is my stomach, for the record.
Yeah.
I have a grumbling stomach and it is awkward. Anyways, separate issue. Yes, we have a mover for that motion. Do you have a second? Second that motion? Okay. So that would be essentially the second motion identified here.
The first.
First.
Yeah. Says to open, without, the second one is to decrease by 1,600, and I don't want that. I'd like to see the Sundays open.
Okay, yeah, got it, yeah. So
Yeah.
Councillor Stewart seconding.
Question?
Yeah.
Thank you for you. So I'm just curious, there hasn't been a demand from the public to open on Sundays? It's more from the FBRL to do this, as I'm sure it's probably standard in the Lower Mainland and Fraser Valley, for them to be open on a Sunday?
I'm guessing that some of the other member libraries are open on Sundays, and so they're proposing that ours opens as well. And I think a good point with Councilor Medlock is that if you try it for a year, they're going to be able to tell the council in a year from now, was it worth it?
Yeah.
And if it hardly made a dent in the turnout on Sundays, then it's council's call to say, no, we don't want to do it, and therefore in future years the assessment could go down.
Thank you. So could we have direction to the library staff to keep track of the flow on Sundays for those 8 weeks in the summer to see, it's 10 weeks?
10 days.
Oh, for 10 weeks, yeah.
I'm sure they want to do it
Okay,
themselves anyways,
perfect.
but we can
Yeah.
certainly direct them to
Yeah.
keep stats for us.
Yeah. Sounds good. Motion's on the table. Okay.
So, once we do this, it doesn't mean it's gonna be in perpetuity, it's just for this year, 2015?
Well, I think, I can confirm it, but I think what their plan is that they're gonna open it if council so decides on Sundays, and then it would be going forward that it would stay that way until they were notified otherwise.
And did you say that it's closed on Mondays?
She reports that they're closed on Mondays. I'm assuming they're closed on Mondays throughout the year. I haven't gone to the library since high school.
Okay.
I believe that's the way it is. Okay. All those in favor? Councillor, carries. Thank you. Item 7B, report from our Director of Finance pertaining to 2018 annual grants, grant and aid applications. I don't know if that's a Mr. Forlowski or a Mr. Cordes thing.
Thank you, Worship. Normally, I would bring this in November, or possibly early December, but I thought it's going to be for the next year's budget anyway, so let's bring it now that all the information and applicants have been received. So we advertised, the policy calls for an October 15th deadline. It was the 16th, being the Monday this year. We received 4 applications for next year's grant and aid budget. They're listed there in a brief summary of what the purpose of the grants are for. And I've also included what we paid this year in 2017, and then keep in mind too that we have the 3 line items that are in the budget as per the policy. So for tonight, staff's seeking direction on how we should be distributing that for the 2018 budget from the 4 applicants there.
Okay. Counselor Erickson, Counselor Diamond? Yeah. Counselor Diamond?
Thank you. I'd like to see the breakdown of what we've given in the past historically to the various agencies, as I know some of the organizations have come forward, several years in a row, and I know Grant and Aid is for sort of those one-time, opportunities for organizations. So it's not ongoing funding necessarily, so I'm not sure if you are able to have access to that.
Your worship, through you, I have that information. The Fraser Canyon Hospice Society, from the years 2009 up through 2017, have been granted 25.5K, 25,500. Hope Mountain Center for Outdoor Living, 2012, which was the last date that we have data they got as grant and aid, through to 2017 was $6,750. The Hope Community Choir from 2013 through to 2016 got 1.6K or $1,600, and we have no data from 2009 to 2017 for search and rescue for grant and aid.
I don't remember.
What was the search and rescue?
Hope Volunteer Search and Rescue Crew,
$0.
$0.
And so can you please clarify the hospice again, from what date to now?
From, Your Worship, from 2009 through to 2016, my calculation shows $25,500. 25,500. In particular, 09, 5,000, 10, 4,000, 11, 4,000, 12, 2,500, 13, 2,000, 14, 2,000, 15, 2,000, 16, 2,000, and 17, 2,000.
Okay, Counselor Erickson?
Through you, I see that we have a maximum budget for 10,000 in here, and this is $1,300 more than the 10,000.
That's why we need direction, because the policy, outside of the 3 line item accounts, there's 10,000 to be distributed amongst the applicants each year.
So the options, Your Worship, obviously you can edit or modify the amount you're willing to give to bring it down to 10,000, or you can choose to exempt yourselves from the policy this go around and award monies up to the amount asked in total.
Okay, Counselor Miller?
Thank you. I feel like I talk about the same point every year when it comes up for discussion, that, and Councillor Dival touched on it already, that our policy is very clear in stating that it is for a single big project, one time, one off, or ongoing funding for, I think, a maximum of 3 years. Or probably projects throughout time. And it's just a tough thing to say no to somebody. But I'm looking at the list, and you know, Fraser Canyon Hospital, or Hospice Society, sorry, is one that does get ongoing funding, and they do excellent work in the community. I hate to say no to them. But what I'm proposing would be, Search and Rescue hasn't asked for anything ever. So I think that they should get their full ask of $7,000. Community Choir is $500, and Hope Mountain Center $1,300, and that we reduce Fraser Canyon Hospices by the $1,300 that were over asked for, down to $1,200. We would then spend our maximum of $10,000, and everybody gets what they asked for, except for Fraser Canyon Hospice, only because they've been continuous since 2009. So that's what I'm thinking.
That makes sense. So would that be a motion?
I will make that a motion.
I'll second.
Yes.
For 2017, is there anything budgeted, like is there any reserves that are extra over, because if people don't apply for the monies, is there any more money in the reserves for that?
Going on memory, I think for this year, we had the 10,000 budget, of course, and we allocated the full 6,100 that was applied for, so not all the 10,000 in 2017 was used at this point in the year.
Thank you. Further follow-up, do we request from the organizations, sort of their outcomes? I mean, we have, yep, we have them.
Don't know if I have the outcomes, I have the applications here.
Okay, it's the outcomes I'm
But
sort of looking for. I mean, if we're looking at, $25,000 over, the past several years with hospice, I mean, I believe in the bereavement camp, but it is a 2-day bereavement camp, and then what happens after that weekend? What sort of follow-up has happened, and what sort of outcomes, I guess, in sort of trying to establish that. So do we require that in the application process if they've applied before in the past, that they submit something that speaks to past outcomes?
I think a financial report is asked to be given.
We asked for the financial statements,
Right.
which they all provided.
I guess I just don't wanna, I mean, obviously, it looks like we're being a funder for hospice ongoingly, and I don't think that's the intent of the grant we need. It's to help, for them to be sustainable in the future, so, those are just my thoughts that
I don't believe our application actually asked specifically how the money was spent, outside of the fact that we see their financial statements.
Okay.
For some of these smaller organizations, it's probably quite a bit of work to try to explain exactly how, like for example, in the hospice one, they use it for the Camp Skylark, and so that's just putting that camp on. So the other ones, for example, from last year.
Councilor Meadow?
Thank you. My point is that we keep going over this every year, and it seems like if we're not going to follow our policy, then we need to change our policy. So my motion is an effort to stick with our policy, but it's even going, I mean, if we were to follow our policy to the letter that it is, then Fraser Canyon Hospice would get nothing this year because they have done so for 3 years. But because we're just over our ask by a little bit, and there is some room in there, and that's why I've decided in my motion to include that, because I do appreciate the work that they do, and I don't want to see that end. But there needs, I guess maybe we need to reach out to them and let them know that this is our policy and this is what it is. See what else they can do for fundraising options, I suppose. Like I say, it's a tough thing to say no to somebody, especially volunteer groups like these guys, but I like to stick to our policies, or at least make an effort to change our policies to suit. And we've gone back and forth on our policy. There was at one time where we talked about eliminating our grants in aid progressively down to 0. And then we've since resolved to stick with the $10,000 plus add these line items, so we've in fact increased our grant need. Maybe they would like to have a delegation to council and approve for a line item in the budget as well, and there could be some discussion around that, but at this point, that's just the rationale behind my motion.
The current policy, from what I can see here, doesn't mention that there's a 3-year or anything as far as the time limit. Like if you get 3 years in a row, then you're cut off or anything like that. It's basically you apply certain policies, time frame, and then you go through this process.
Was the policy meant to have a date on there? Because I know certainly it was in there.
We revised it almost a year ago to the date. But the current policy is from the 10,000 that is in the budget annually, it's only up to 2019. So in essence, this policy would have to be amended, revised for the 2020 year. as it currently reads.
Okay, Councillor Stewart?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is it possible to carry over any unused funds from 2017 into 2018, or is that not allowed?
That would be a council decision.
But
There's
it's
nothing against
possible?
it, you could word it such that 1,300, for example, be carried forward over the unused amounts from last year, if that's your choice. I mean, the policy says 10,000, but I mean, it's a policy, it's not a bylaw. But that's totally up to council.
Thank you.
Okay, motion's on the table. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Thank you. Item 7C, report from our CAO pertaining to the whole flag and new brand.
Your worship, thank you. At the last council meeting, you asked me to come back with some points regarding flag contest and reinvigorating that process. I have done some research, clearly, and you had opined about maybe offering $1,000.
Yeah. I've been talking to different man.
For the winter.
Kind of guy.
It's not Vancouver. For the winter. Director Adamson's here, maybe they're reaching. And the prize limits or the prize amounts that I found in my research have tended to be exactly around the $1,000 to a maximum of $5,000 for amateurs or professionals, but offering it up as just an entry and not conducting work as such. So staff recommend clearly that we support that discussion. The $1,000 financially is clearly supportable in the budget. And what I propose, if that's all right with council, and you'll have to resolve to do this, then I'll reinvigorate the process. However, this time I will get more stakeholders involved to publicize as well. So work with the with the chamber and the school division in a more formal way as opposed to traditional advertising of something like this. And then I'll, in consultation with them, I'll get an end date for it and report back to council and get it up and running.
Yeah, and the reason I brought this up is I think we can get a fair bit of mileage out of this if we work with not only the local media but the provincial, because there'll be an opportunity for folks to, local people to talk about what it is to be a resident of Hope, sort of the elements of, positives of being in Hope. And I think there'll be a heck of a lot more than $1,000 worth of free advertising if we work this the right way. Because, how much does it cost to get, airtime on CTV for a couple minutes, a number of times. And kind of a good news item to spread the word about our community. And I look at the amount of mileage we got out of that 35th anniversary of First Blood, that celebration. I think that was very well done, and it certainly generated a lot of discussion about our community. So if we can do the same thing for a relatively small investment, why not? And it's certainly not limiting, certainly not saying out-of-town people can only apply. This is everyone in town and anyone within the province or within Canada. If they design something that is suited to our needs, we can make that happen. Should be getting back to us.
Well, Your Worship, I'm looking for a motion, and the motion would be that staff conduct another flag design contest offering a prize of $1,000. That way we can get things on the go.
Yeah, and I think inherent within that motion would be, the whole purpose of it would be to not only get the flag design, but create a bit of a stir within the broadcast media as to what we're doing.
That's the intent moving forward.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Do we have a motion to that effect, please?
Sure.
Okay, Councillor Miller,
Second.
Councillor Smith, seconding. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Committee reports. Just a quick thing here, and this is something that I think we can up our game a little bit on. I know that as a community, we have literally millions of people that pass by our community every year. And we do have a highway signage presence, but I think we can definitely do better in the future. And Hope does have international notoriety. Like I don't do a lot of traveling, but coincidentally this time I did 2 trips, which are kind of novel to me. And over Christmas and New Year, I went to Africa to visit a friend of mine and do some work there. And then when I went to Mexico, I met a number of people too that actually they were very, very well acquainted with Hope. And then when I was in Africa, there were actually people that I bumped into that talked about elements of our downtown and the park and everything. So we actually do have a world famous downtown. I would love to see signs on the highway that say, visit our world famous downtown, because it is world famous. We're not making a claim that's not correct. And, you know, essentially, once the signs are up, and for a small maintenance fee, once they're up, there's a lot of free advertising that's garnered when you have that kind of signage up. I know when I go on any road trip, I've been a road trip guy, so in the past in the States, it's amazing how much of an impact nice, tasteful signs make when you're passing through a community you haven't been through before. So obviously for people that have been through Hope, they either like it or don't like it, so they'll either stop here or don't stop here. But for those that are fresh that haven't stopped here yet in the downtown, it might be a fun way to invite them in. So what I would suggest to maybe council next time we have a chinwag with the Advantage Hope folks, we talk to them about different ideas as to you know, what kind of signs we can get in there. And I don't think it would cost a huge amount. But I know that one area that's really hurting is coming off the Coquihalla into town. There's no real appropriate signage. Coming in the other direction is a little better. But it would be nice to have kind of a consistent, very obvious presence on the highways. So, just food for thought. I don't think we need a decision tonight, but I just want to bring that up as an idea, because I think we could really up the game there, and for not a lot of money. So maybe for the next budget discussion, which is going to be coming up in the next little while, we can include that as a line item once we identify what we're looking for. You know, might make sense. Anyways, Councillor Ertz?
Sure. Okay, so I have nothing major to report, except I'd like to talk about that sign coming in from 95. The Chamber of Commerce has got that big sign off to the right coming in. It's a huge sign, but it's all grown in. But it's a massive sign. I would have measured it one time, I just don't remember the numbers, but I got it written down. But if that was cleaned up, that could, it's all steel sign. It's a very good sign. I may have to, you know, in the chamber to get that, work and get that cleaned up and put a nice sign on. Because that would be a really nice spot as you're coming in. It's right with the police, overlooks and all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I wouldn't be acquainted with that kind of thing. That would be a councillor.
well, it's nice, it's a nice place there. I'll talk to the chamber about that and see if we can do something to get that cleaned up. There's quite a bit of bush in there. So I don't have any other reports other than, Mr. Fordowski, when are we gonna get that garbage cleaned up on the sidewalks from the fire? On our property, it's on the town?
We're working with the insurance companies now, because ultimately they're the ones that have to pay for it.
Yeah, but it's on our property.
It is on the sidewalks, absolutely.
That should be cleaned up and then they can,
As soon as we can get it arranged, again, we're working with them. It does take a bit of time. I will put in a call personally tomorrow.
good, thank you, because doesn't look good for town. Thank you, that's all I have to report.
And could we, maybe for the next council meeting, have it as an agenda item, because you could maybe tell them that council wants that removed to a suite, and there'll be a cleanup order otherwise for council.
I will either provide an update that it's being done, it has been done, or I desire a letter from you in order to help it be done.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, because it might be a good way to motivate them to up the game a little bit.
It's been about a month, so I think they have enough time to at least clean the sidewalks.
Yeah, oh, it's gotta come down.
That's all I have to report.
Yeah, fair enough. Councilor Mello?
Thank you. So what do we got? Last week we did the business walk, so that's something that we've taken on now for a couple of years. And it's led by the Advantage Hope. But this year we had great participation from the Chamber of Commerce, so I'd like to thank them for sending out 3 volunteers. I know there was supposed to be 4, and Larry couldn't make it from the Globe. But it was really good to see the Chamber come out and take part in the business walks, and I know they probably got a lot out of it, so I think that was really good. Basically, we all got together at Rolly's Restaurant, 9 AM, kind of got paired up into teams, and out we went into the community for 3 hours, trying to get everybody on our list, which is tough because people love to talk. But it was, I'd say, success. I heard a lot of positive feedback from the area that we took part in, that they had had a great, successful year, and I hope that everybody else got the same feedback we did. But there will be a report compiled. If anybody did not get a business walk survey and they want one, they can contact the visitor center and they will drop one off and include it in the report. So that was actually a real fun day. That was last Thursday, I think it was, or Wednesday.
A rainy day.
It was a little rainy. That's okay. There's an Advantage Home meeting tomorrow that I'll be attending. And on Thursday, there's a Community Futures meeting up in Ashcroft. I'll be attending that. I'll bring up the signage with Advantage Hope at the meeting tomorrow. I'm pretty sure it is part of the strategic plan, but it did not make it into the current work plan. But they'll be planning soon for the next year's work plan, so it's definitely something I'll bring up at the meeting. And this weekend, Saturday, is the Hope Motorsports Group's Pumpkin Smash Demolition Derby down at the Sports Bowl, so thought I'd put a plug in for that. It's all day long, 4x4 races during the day and derby at night. That's all.
I'm sure it'll be a real hit.
It'll be a real hit.
Yeah. Good luck in that, that'll be good. Counselor Stewart.
Okay, so I attended the Golden Agers meeting, and their AGM is coming up in November on the 21st. They also have a guest speaker talking about wills, funerals, and power of attorney. They also had their fall tea, and it was very well attended. On the weekend, on Sunday, I attended the bench dedication for the Purple Lights. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a new bench in the park, and it's got a bit of a hue to it, kind of a rosy purple, and it looks really good. There was small attendance. It was kind of cold and wet, but Daryl Pelshade came and blessed the bench, and it was very nice to remember and shine a light on domestic violence. Then followed by that was the pancake breakfast at the Legion, and lots of great conversations took place and volunteering. Next up, for Purple Lights, as of today, the Kindness Coloring Book has gone out, and they'll be on display around the community. So what this was a coloring book that was put into the elementary schools to display kindness and to think about kindness, so that the thought is on being kind. And you can see these displayed throughout the community. And then on October 27th, it's Wear Purple Day, so people are encouraged to wear purple and to contemplate being kind and shining a light on domestic violence. As well, there will be a magician talking to kids and about kindness at both elementary schools. The chamber meeting was postponed last week due to weather, and so they'll have their meeting on the 25th, and then followed by the AGM on November 1st. And just want to, I don't know how to say this, but that crosswalk on the Old Hope Princeton Highway, I know that's not ours, and I know that we can't force anything, but there's little kids that cross the street on that highway, and it's taking a long time for them to get across, and I haven't driven in many years, but I just do not understand why people can't stop at a crosswalk. So is there any way that we could maybe make a call and suggest that they think about painting the lines, or get it done? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Which one are you speaking of?
The crosswalk, specifically at Ryder, where it crosses near McDonald's. There's an apartment building there with young kids,
Okay,
and you know, they dart in front of traffic. So I think it's a safety thing.
Maybe we could talk to Highways about actually putting one of those pedestrian controlled.
We will bring it up again. I know that Kevin has discussed from a regional aspect. I have an upcoming appointment with transport officials at a slightly higher level, so I'll bring it up at that point too.
That'd be good.
Greatly appreciate
That's a
it.
good idea, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Diamond?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
Nothing to report.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Moving on to item 10, permits and bylaws. We have a couple of items here pertaining to the last meeting we had. So I'll read out the recommended motion, and that is that the District of Hope Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 1398/2017 be adopted in order to redesignate the property legally described at 59850 Hunter Creek Road from a land use designation of limited use to comprehensive development. Do we have that in motion?
So moved.
Councillor Dival moving, seconder. Councillor Smith seconding. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Item B, zoning amendment bylaw number 1399/2017. Recommended motion that this be approved zoning amendment bylaw number 1399/2017 be adopted in order to rezone the property legally described at 59850 Hunter Creek Road from limited use L1 to comprehensive development CD4. Motion to that effect.
Adoption.
Okay, Councillor Medlock moving, Councillor Erickson seconding. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Item C, report from Cindy Squirrel, and that is pertaining to DVP Development Variance Permit at 20966 Swallow Place for JCR Design, agent for Steel Properties. Recommended motion that council approve the issuance of a development variance permit to relax the front lot line setback requirement of 7.5 meters, 25 feet, to 3.5 meters, 12 feet, in order to construct a dwelling on the property legally described at 20966 Swallow Place. Motion to that effect, please. Okay, Councillor Smith moving, seconder. Okay. Councillor Erickson, I know we spoke about this last time. And additional comments, Mr. Gill? I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Now this one here, this is an interesting one. Mr. Gill, if you could speak to this one. This is pertaining to potential DVP at 61599 Yale Road for Pangea Power Corp. There's an idea here pertaining to a large windmill coming into our power generation. Okay, Mr. Gill.
Your Worship, through you, it's a very interesting sort of proposal that we're receiving. You know, we want to look at it more from a communal aspect than anything else. The gentleman, or the applicant in this case, would like to construct a 1.5 megawatt wind turbine for electrical power generation, which in turn they resell it to hydro. The tower itself, which would house the actual wind turbine, would be 80 meters in height. And the wind turbine at its most vertical axis would equate up to 140 meters in height. So it's somewhat substantial. The variances are not for the variances are not for the actual height of the structure, but more so for the placement on the property. The way that we have our use regulations set out, it's based on a calculation basis. The initial one's for the land size. Right now the parcel sits at 0.4 of a hectare, and typically what's recommended in the zoning bylaw is to have a 1 hectare parcel. The property itself, physically speaking, is probably less than what it is legally described and what's under the taxation roll due to the erosional effects that happen along the Fraser River. So in essence, we have about 6 variances here to sort of bring forward to council in the sense of moving towards the public component to this. We're looking at it from more of, instead of just a regular development variance permit, but more of a public process. That's it.
Okay. So of course now there's also a sound element that I know I've been in the States where they have these wind farms and they actually make a fair chunk of noise, some of these. So is a proponent interested in say, taking a delegation to a similar turbine to actually essentially show what kind of noise emissions take place?
Your worship, we could ask for that. The proponent is wanting to demonstrate sort of the requirement from the zoning bylaw, which is 60 decibels. So from the property boundaries, it should not emit more than 60 decibels. Right now, where the location is, the ambient sound is already over that due to the highway, railroad, and the river.
Yeah, okay. So at this point, it would be to consult, essentially.
Your worship, through you, yes, basically we would want to go through a public process. But it's going to be at the developer's cost, or the applicant's cost. It'd be somewhat similar to, I think, what we've done with other sort of rezonings. But I guess we're getting some...
Yeah, turn the volume on the side down, that's the speaker. It's good.
I think it's his.
If the speaker's turned down, that just turns off the speaker in front of you, but it still works out there.
Thank you, Mr. Progress.
We're sounding like Elvis there for a minute.
So basically it would be a public sort of process. He will bring in a scale model just to show the sort of visual impact and the sheer size of this structure. And if it's amenable to sort of council to sort of move through the process of this and to give it its fair shot. It is supported by the OCP. It is a clean air or a clean renewable energy producing segment. It's not something that's gonna, like other sort of hydro projects, it uses land. In this case, the only sort of thing that comes out of it is more the visual impact.
Thank you. I'm really excited about this. I think so long as the noise issue can be not an issue, I think it sends a big message to the lower mainland that leave all that big smoke behind. This is where the clean air is. This is where, mountains start and all that. I just think that picture that he has in the report with the big tower there, I think that this property is perfect for it. It would just be one more thing on the gateway into our community. I've talked to a lot of people about it. I was talking with folks down at the Visitor Info Center. From a tourist aspect, I guess you could say, it would become a landmark for sure. People would know about it and would think good things of it. I think it's an excellent image, and our OCP supports it. I definitely support this process where we're at the stage where we'll go out to notice, and then we'll have the applicant do a public information meeting. And that's where a lot of those concerns and more information can be heard and addressed. So I'm definitely in favor of this, and I'd like to move the staff recommendation for the next step on the variances.
Okay, Councillor Medlock moving as seconder, Councillor Stewart seconding, and then we had as well Councillor Councillor Dowd.
Thank you, through you. So, I support the process to go through this. I'm not 100% as confident as Councillor Medlock as the location. Just, reducing from 2.5 acres down to 1.10 acres, and that's not even accounting the fact that there's erosion into the river. So, eventually you might not have a parcel of land left. But I am in favor of the process, to hear what the community has to say with respect to this process. It's a perfect location in the sense of the wind, and Hope is known for its wind, so why not capitalize on that as well? However, I do want to hear what the public has to say, so in favor of moving it forward for further consultation and seeing that. Now, has this organization, this company, done other wind turbines locally? I'm not recalling seeing any wind turbines in my travels down the Lower Mainland or such. Do you know?
Your worship, through you, Councillor Dowdle, I believe they may have had a small role in the one that you see on Grouse Mountain.
Oh, okay. Now, another question, I don't know if you can answer this, Mr. Gill, is there different sizes of wind turbines? Is there?
This is a medium-sized
Oh,
one.
medium.
In the report,
Okay,
it
at
says.
80 meters. Okay, all right.
80 meters, yeah, no
Okay.
goodness. Yeah, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the process, but I just want the rest of the council to think, 450 feet high from the bottom to the tip, that's a long ways. So, and the site coming into Hope, and councilors thinks it's gonna be nice, I'd like to see a little more of it. If you go up to Kelowna, over the connector, they have a few on the left-hand side as you get near Kelowna, I think 4 or 5 up in there, and there's quite a buzz when you stop, there's quite a buzz. So I think that's something we should, I'm for the process.
You know, the other thing I think we have to make sure that the proponents get feedback from, that we get feedback from is, and now obviously we have the Vancouver Soaring Association included here, which is, they're obviously a valid stakeholder group, but they generally speaking, they fly during good weather when you have, you know, warmth and thermals and all those good things. But one of the purposes of our air park is to act as an emergency airstrip for folks that are flying that get themselves in a bit of an aviation pickle where they can't make it over the mountains and weather's socked in on them. This would be a very awkward item to bump into when you're trying to land your plane during poor weather. Because I know there's been many cases over the past years where people they'll overshoot they'll overshoot the runway and end up landing on the highway somewhere in Sunshine Valley or whatever. It is a genuine problem for aviators that some are a little too ambitious when they fly when the weather's poor. So I have serious concerns regarding the impact on that sort of airspace, because you know someone might be very good at missing the mountain, but they might be a little harder to miss the turbine if they don't know it's there. So.
But at least they'll be able to see it from up there.
They'll know where it is once, yeah. But I mean, I just would, you know, like qualified feedback on that, because I don't have the expertise to, you know, give proper feedback on that, but I'm sure there are people out there that would, you know a lot about that. Okay, Councilor Hall?
Yeah, in the report that the proponent has given us, he talks about Transport Canada's, Transport Canada aviation regulations we followed, marking and obstruction, lighting, of course. An obstruction permit has been issued by NAV Canada for the placement of turbine, and part of that application permit is full consideration of the flight pass and consultation with the Vancouver Soaring Station and FBRD, of course, be a part of that. So these are all things that I think are definitely good to be making sure of, and all of that will come out at the public information meeting. You know, I have questions for that time. I think, you know, he's looking at properties to the sides of where he is, and I'm thinking, does he want to have several of these things? You know, maybe that would change my opinion on what it would look like. But yeah, in the interim, I think it's a potentially great thing for our community. There's one other note, I'm just trying to find what I wanted to speak about, but I can't find it. Oh, yeah, well, just I guess the noise issue throughout the report, that seems to be a common thread that keeps coming up as noise being a concern. So apparently the manufacturer of this particular tower that they're looking to use is direct drive. It has no gearbox, so it's not one of the noisy ones that maybe they are in Kelowna. I don't know enough about this stuff. But as far as the use of the property, I mean, if they can do some riprapping along the Fraser River in accordance with our RAR to salvage the erosion, that's a good use of the space, because there's nothing else you can really do there as far as building on the property. It does not affect many residences at all. It gets a distance away from anywhere where anybody lives. And it is right next to a railroad, a river, and a highway. So as far as ambient noise, I mean, that's one of the spots in town that you probably lose the drone of a turbine. So those are other reasons why I think it's a great spot, and excited to hear more about it. Okay.
right, so we have a motion on the table to take it to the next level, as it were. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Look forward to the process.
Your worship, if I can follow on one thing, it would be interesting to discuss what the contingency plan will be if for whatever reason the turbine ceases operation. Because of economics or because of insoluble operator, et cetera. And what the options can be according to your will as far as the future of that site. Would it mean the turbine stays there, or would it mean the turbine is dismantled at someone else's cost, et cetera? Or is it decorated as a palm tree? Something like that.
Paint the blades up.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point to add to the discussion when we get to that level. Good point.
Advertising sign.
Yeah. So 11A, correspondence, motion to receive, please. Thank you. Thank Councillor Dybel. Seconder. Councillor Smith, okay. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Other pretty business. Item 13, question period for items relevant to the agenda.
Can I speak? Yeah.
Absolutely. If it's pertinent to the agenda, you're good to go.
Thank you. I wanted to come today. My name is Marianne Gruckert. I'm the manager with Victim Services. And basically to extend thanks to the district for their support of the Purple Light Initiative. You can see the park is lit up with the lights, and this year it's even got more purple lights. So we very much appreciate the role the district's played in making that happen. We've come from the small tree you have in your lobby here, which used to be in the public library, and now we're utilizing the tree in the park. And I just wanted to extend a great deal of thanks to Kevin and to the staff with maintenance who helped get the lights up, but also with respect to the installation of the bench. We're thrilled to be able to have put that in. That would not have happened without the staff. It was, they were a critical piece in determining location, getting the pad poured, and actually getting the bench and installing it. So I'm very grateful for that. It meant that we could have the unveiling on the date we'd selected. And as Councillor Stewart mentioned, I think we had about 16 people. We didn't have a lot, but it was pouring with rain, so we still weathered through. And as you mentioned, Darcy Peltier, who came and gave a blessing, and I think a very powerful message about the importance of keeping this issue alive and the awareness piece. So many people in this community have supported it. So it's also to let you know about the fact that it's been a very much a group effort. We've had, from the kickoff where we had the Hope Lions, we've had other groups participate in helping us, the Legion for the pancake breakfast, along with both Philo and Save on Foods, numerous community organizations and individuals who stepped up to do so. And in fact, I've heard from people who couldn't be there and are actual victims of violence who do recognize the importance that it makes. So it is having an effect, and I think that it's powerful. So for a small community, I think kudos and congratulations to everyone who's been involved in that. To just highlight the last two things that are happening, we do have the Kindness Project. That's what we call it. Every year we do a coloring sheet for kids in this community, and they can draw or write whatever they want around what kindness means to them. And I think it falls along the lines of what the schools are trying to do around the anti-bullying as well. So it's all part of a bigger message, but it's a way for our youngest people to be involved. And starting tomorrow, we will be, just to give you an idea of what they'll look like, at Save on Foods, at the library, at Read Write, Hope Community Services, hopefully the district. You will see images like this. It's phenomenal. We had about 250 kids do these, so we have a lot of entries, and there's some really amazing, profound things. They not only draw, but they say. So when you get a chance to look at them, and I really encourage you throughout the next couple of weeks or 10 days or so, go around and take a look at some of the things our youngest people are doing. So it's pretty powerful. And we're really excited about that. Again, as Councillor Stewart mentioned, it wraps up on the 27th in terms of activities where we'll do our Purple Day. And we also have a magician coming who is, for the most part, it's fun, but in the middle of that presentation, he's going to incorporate the aspect of kindness. So it all helps around, how we move forward in relationships. So that was pretty much it, to say thank you for working with us, and we're excited about it. We're going to be excited for next year in terms of any new developments. Really encourage anyone to be involved. We did the same thing similar to a business walk where we went to every business prior to putting up decals, the ones that we could get to and that were open, and then went back and you'll see those purple decals up again in the business windows. So a lot of community support, which we very much appreciate. So yeah, that was it. So that's my purpose in being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rupert. Much appreciated.
Right after, I will say thank you. I'm Addie Murphy from Hope Community Choir. I just want to express thank you for considering our application to the grant money. Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work. Yeah. Okay.
Can I say something?
Well, I guess it's pertinent to the agenda, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that $10,000 isn't enough for a grant aid. Area B is roughly 1/10 the size. I give away 22,000 every year. A lot goes to the services in town. Since you've not given hospice that, it's going to be fall on Area B to make up the money, right? Which I'm going to do, no problem. But I think that your town is made up of so many different volunteers. My 22,000 is always oversubscribed. And I think 10,000 is just not enough. You guys gotta really think what these people do for our town to make our town, right? There's all these volunteers and they need money. And the money,
I think,
yeah, that's all.
I think, Director Adamson, I think number one, your point's maybe a little bit out of place.
What's on the agenda?
Yeah, no. I would say it actually borders on disrespectful, that's personal opinion, but many of the expenses that we have as a community, you don't even have to touch. For instance, policing, our largest expense, you don't have to pay a nickel of that, unless I'm sadly mistaken. The $1.6 million we just spent on paving, I think that's something you don't generally have to delve into. So we're not being cheapskates here. We just recognize we have limited dollars, and the public has recognized too that taxes in Hope are pretty pricey. So we're trying to keep it down to a 2% per year budget increase per annum, and that is why we have to be pretty frugal in a lot of areas. But when you have to pay $2.4 million for policing, it kind of limits your options in other areas as well.
Can I speak to that?
Actually, no.
Your Worship, just for some context as well, we have established line item support for three of the biggest, groups that need support. So that's an extra 15,000 K per year. So that's Hope Care Transit, Communities in Bloom.
No.
Sorry?
Crime prevention.
And crime prevention.
Council.
Oh, right, yeah, so not CID.
And Communities in Bloom.
Right, anyway, 15 extra thousand, so you add that to the 10, so really you're looking at 25,000.
So I guess the other point is, and the good Lord didn't bless me with a lot of filters, so I'm just gonna let it rip.
Sure.
I guess the other point is that, I think one of the important elements of being mayor or being a council member is that we work respectfully with our neighbors. And you seem to have the regular habit of coming in here and critiquing council without sort of fair background of the issues. On a number of occasions now, I mean, it's maybe good to get a little exposure for whatever reason, but it's, I don't think necessarily a tasteful thing to do for building relations with neighboring jurisdictions. I know that, for instance, when I chatted with the folks from the province and the Sun about the Barrett Gold project, I said, well, in fairness, I'm probably not the best person to talk to because the home jurisdiction is the regional district, and Director Adamson should be the best person to speak to that. So that is why the press coverage sort of emerged the way it did, because you are the jurisdiction, and I think the more council meetings you attend, Director Adamson, the more you'll recognize that we stretch our dollar fairly far, and we are very respectful to our neighbors, and we do try to bless those in need. But, you know, for you to present a vision that, well, they'd be up the creek, but you'll show up as a knight in shining armor is kind of maybe a bit cheesy, actually, to be quite blunt. There's another term for it, but that's an expletive that I shouldn't use at a council meeting, so I'll probably not use that.
I appreciate what you're saying there. Maybe I put it, hurt your feelings, I didn't mean to.
No,
But-
it's not about hurting feelings, it's about being respectful to neighbors is what it is.
You know, I appreciate respectful neighbors, and I do acknowledge that you did tell the reporter to talk to me, and that's great, that's what you should do. But, you know, you don't do that every time. That's the first time you've done that.
Actually, that's incorrect. And the other thing I think is going to be quite interesting to start attending your meetings.
You do?
And then questioning at a public hearing, for me to come to your meeting and question your conduct or offer critique of your performance in your home jurisdiction. It's just not an appropriate way. If you're tasteful about it, awesome, fill your boots, but I'm just providing.
I thought I was being tasteful, I was just asking why you didn't know it, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. And you do attend my meetings. You're at every board meeting, that's my meeting.
No, that's a regional meeting where everyone attends.
And that's my
Like
own.
you're, you know, in Yale School, public meetings.
Oh, you're welcome anytime.
That's okay, we have business here. We'll let you do your job. Okay. Additional comments? Questions? Ms. Hines, you got something on your mind. Blurt her out, come on.
Oh,
With a
no.
smirk like that, you gotta blurt it out.
Something on our hands.
Nothing to say.
Okay, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Okay, move, seconded. Thank you.
I didn't
No
want
one opposing that?